Good afternoon, everyone. I am Lisa Lord, and thank you so much for joining for this media briefing at such short notice. However, given the eruption of the La Soufrière volcano in St. Vincent and the Grenadines this morning, we will be addressed by the Minister of Home Affairs, Information and Public Affairs, the Honorable Wilfred Abrams, the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Kenneth Best, Director of the Met Services, Mr. Sabu Best, the Senior Veterinary Officer in the Ministry of Agriculture, Dr. Mark Trotman, and Mr. Anthony Headley, the Director of the Environmental Protection Department. We will start with Minister Abrams.
Good afternoon, everyone. Over the last few weeks, we've been closely monitoring the situation in St. Vincent with the increased seismic activity connected with the La Soufrière volcano. And at 8:41 this morning, the volcano suffered an explosive eruption. So basically what we have been fearing for quite a while has come to pass. And I want to start by expressing our complete sympathy as a government and as a people of Barbados for the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines on what is a catastrophic event in their lives. It is almost beyond contemplation that a couple of weeks ago they were in relative comfort, and now people are in danger of losing their lives, their livelihoods, their houses, all of their property. It has created a situation, an emergency disaster situation in a neighboring Caribbean territory. And we here in Barbados have pledged our full support to St. Vincent and their people in their time of need. I can just update you and advise that as of now, our latest report, or as of now, there are about 2,000 people in St. Vincent spread over 20 shelters, and there are about 20,000 people still in the orange and red zones to be evacuated. So the situation is evolving in St. Vincent, and this is as serious as it gets. Here at home in Barbados, we are aware that the disaster in St. Vincent is going to have some implications for us in Barbados. And we've been inundated this morning and yesterday with questions from the public that require answers so that people's minds can be put at rest, so people can take necessary precautions and steps to secure their property, secure their animals, and have their questions answered so that the guesswork is taken out of it. So that is why the panel is the panel that we have. This press conference is going to be relatively short. Persons are just going to give an overview to put you at to increase your level of understanding as to what is happening and what to expect. And we will flesh it out as things develop. This is still early stages yet, but there are some critical messages that need to be got across. What I will also ask is that persons monitor the official channels for information. A lot of hysteria has been spread already. People are panicking, in some cases unnecessarily so, because persons are quick to jump on social media and give their input, and people take it as gospel. So we undertake to provide to you the information as we get it, and to provide updates as often as necessary so that you can secure your situation here in Barbados. You can secure your health and take all the necessary steps that are required for us here in Barbados, and we can also give you up-to-date and credible information as to what is happening in St. Vincent and with the persons in St. Vincent. So please just monitor the official channels. Without saying any more, I think we're going to turn it over first to Mr. Sabu Best, who's the Director of Meteorological Services, to answer some of the questions that you've put forward already.
Thank you, Minister. Good afternoon to everyone in Barbados. Just to add to what the Minister said, not to repeat what was said before, at about around 11:30 a.m. This morning, there was a very weak plume of ash and dust that passed probably around the mid-levels of the atmosphere in Barbados. That's around 18,000 to 25,000 feet. That's pretty much gone through already, and it's pushing off to our east. So we're pretty much in the clear in terms of any ash or ash cloud at the present moment. That that plume or ash, if you like, was part of the major eruption that occurred this morning. It took about three and a half hours to actually traverse from St. Vincent to Barbados. It would have been difficult to actually see it from the ground because there's an extensive amount of dust haze that's still in the atmosphere. And on top of that, there's a canopy of high-level cloud, which we call cirrus. Makes the sky look kind of whitish or milky. The last reports we got, there's actually even more cirrus that's coming in from the southwest. So to actually to see any kind of smoke or ash traversing aloft is going to be rather difficult or near impossible to see at this point in time. That dust haze is expected to continue through the weekend, and it's serious for the most part. I also believe that forecast for this weekend and coming to Monday should also get a little more cloudy as well. But rainfall levels should be minimal for the next few days, even though it should be getting a little cloudy. Even though the eruption itself has eased off since the 841 incident, but it's still ongoing, but it's not as aggressive as that incident, and therefore the smoke and ash is not getting very high elevations since this morning. And as a result, what we saw on our satellite imagery this morning, the plume has eased off in terms of what's coming out of the La Soufrière and traversing towards the east. Is hanging around, mostly around St. Vincent, and there are deposits around the airport side, and particularly north of the island. Our colleagues from the Met Services in St. Vincent have actually indicated there's light ash fall around the airport, not significant, but it appears to be a lot heavier in the northern section of the island. Back home here in Barbados, when like I indicated, the light ash or plume, if you like, that's passed over late this morning, very early this afternoon. There really hasn't been any reports of anything significant falling out of it. It basically almost passed unnoticed, which is a good thing. But for the future, I mean, questions will be asked about when it's going to happen again. The alert level remains at red, and which means that eruption is ongoing, which it is, and future major eruptions can occur anytime. And it's the major eruptions at this point in time that are the greater concern in terms of ash fall for Barbados, because it's those major eruptions that are going to spill a lot of the ash and debris way up into the atmosphere. We're talking 25,000 to 30,000 feet, which can, once it gets up to that kind of elevation, it can easily traverse eastward towards Barbados because of the wind patterns. The less aggressive eruptions, because of the wind flow at lower levels, so tend to be easterly, it would more blow into the Caribbean Sea and more affect St. Vincent and the Caribbean Sea area. However, like I said, this would be difficult to see from what we've seen so far in terms of the deposits, if there were any, because what passed this morning was very light. I want to add too that we've been working with CIMH over the last couple of days or so. They've been doing some extensive work on their modeling, and they're sharing some wonderful products with us, along with our products that we've been adding to it as well. There's also some collaboration from the Caribbean Meteorology Organization, and also our folks on the ground in St. Vincent, who have been also feeding us back some data with respect to what's going on in the ground. That's basically it from me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Best. We now go to Dr. Kenneth George, the Chief Medical Officer.
Thank you so much, and thanks, Sabu, for setting the stage and context for what the ongoing issues surrounding the explosions at Mount La Soufrière. I would just like Barbadians to know that with respect to the ash cloud, plume, or even ash fall, that there are some potential respiratory and other effects that may occur. And I think that the public needs to know so that they can take the appropriate preventative measures. A lot of the issues surround respiratory, and the respiratory issues are usually allergies. So persons who have asthma and persons who have chronic lung disease need to be aware of the situation and need to take protective actions. They need to remain indoors if possible, Those who cannot remain indoors need to use protective gear or clothing when they are out on the outside of buildings. Persons who are asthmatic, we have always told Barbadians that you need to have an adequate supply of your asthmatic medication to make sure that this can take you through the acute stage of the disease. The other issues include eye irritation and skin irritation. So persons may have eye allergies, burning and itching of the eyes, and some itching of the skin. These can be managed. So on a case-by-case basis, I would encourage persons to stay at home, use the medication, their preventative medication that they normally use, and only if severe symptoms persist should you seek care either at our polyclinics or at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. I think it is important to stay focused and to remember to take direction from public health officials. So with those words, I would like to pass over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. George. We now go to the Senior Veterinary Officer in the Ministry of Agriculture, Dr. Mark Trotman.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. Okay, as was referred to by the director of the Met Office, it appears as the initial insult is abated a bit, but obviously we need to be vigilant. Volcanic ash is potentially toxic to animals, including pets and livestock. The ash is acidic. It contains sulfur and fluorine, and of course this is all dependent on the amount of ash that is deposited. Potential things like ulceration, skin irritation, eye and nose irritation, inhalation, respiratory issues, and things that are potential. So the animals need to be protected if there are heavy deposits of ash on the island. If we do see heavy deposits, then you would want to make sure that your animals are covered. Livestock should be brought in under shelter. Pets indoors to prevent exposure to the ash should it occur. Another major issue that we have to be cognizant of is the effect of the ash dropping on feed, forage, and water supplies for the animals. Heavy deposits of ash can cover pastures, can cover feed storage areas, and contaminated feed storage, contaminated feed and contaminated forage is inedible to animals, cannot be fed to animals. It can cause severe gastrointestinal upset, blockages, etc. So you would want to make sure that any storage facilities for feed and storage are and forage are covered and protected from ashfall. Water, if there is a situation where you don't have water storage, you should collect and store water to be able to provide the animals afterwards, because again, contaminated water can be toxic to animals. The other things I guess we would need to be aware of is the irritation that occurs if the animals do get affected by the ash can easily be addressed by hosing or washing the eyes, mouths, and ears and noses to distribute it. So it's really the ingestion issue that you really would be concerned about. If you do have real serious issues with respect to animals becoming ill, then you should seek veterinary attention. Contact your veterinarian or contact the Veterinary Services Department. The number for the Veterinary Services is 535-0220, 535-0221. Please give us a call. I don't expect to receive any calls because we seem to be over the worst for this time being, but the volcano is still active. Protect your animals, keep them covered, keep their feed and forage covered, and water storage in place to prevent contamination. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Trotman. The Director of the Environmental Protection Department now, Mr. Headley, will address us at this time.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Currently, the EPD has an air quality monitoring station located at CIMH, the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology. We've observed over the last month, at least, an increase in air quality in dust levels. We currently monitor, as I've indicated, dust at that location, and since April 6th, we've seen a 66% increase in dust level, and that is associated with the current dust that we're seeing, the haze that we're seeing. We are going to be putting another station into operation, and this would assist us in terms of understanding the levels of dust if there is dust fall from this particular eruption. We will also be putting in place, as a result of the eruption, a system. I'm hoping to work with Dr. George on that to notify persons if the levels of dust increase beyond the WHO standards for dust in our current environment. So just to repeat, we have one monitoring station in place. We are going to be putting a second monitoring station in place, and these monitoring stations would allow us to monitor the dust levels in terms of concentrations of air against the WHO standards, which would allow us to put preventative measures in place, as well as particularly a warning system to inform persons when the air quality has deteriorated below WHO standards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Headley. We now go to members of the media, and joining us are Gerson Carter from The Nation newspaper, Marlon Madden, Barbados Today, Janelle Riley Thornhill, The Barbados Advocate, Keith Goddard, Starcom Network, and Aaliyah Briggs from CBC. Your questions.
Minister Abrams, good morning or afternoon, I'm not sure. However, can you tell us what are the reliable channels of information that we should listen to?
The reliable channels that we should listen to for information are the Government Information Service and the Public Affairs Department, the Prime Minister's Office, and those three departments are going to liaise with the traditional media, which would include those of you who are here at this press conference. So persons should look for their information in addition to the government sources from the traditional media that we've come to expect. CBC, Starcom, Nation Advocate, Barbados Today, Beijing Reporter. What we don't want to be doing is forwarding on every single thing that we get without verifying that it is indeed accurate, because it may be somebody's interpretation of a situation, and people often glamorize it to get the likes. So one of the reasons we had this press conference today is a lot of stuff is out there on social media, and people are fearing this dust plume that is going to cover Barbados completely by this evening and strip the paint off your cars and poison people. While that is possible, as indicated by Sabu and others, that is not the immediate situation we're dealing with. So we will notify you. This is not just going to get to Barbados just like that. We're going to see it coming. The radars are going to pick it up. We will give people advance notice. So we're here to answer the questions that people have, so they don't have to have resource to sensational, self-made media persons.
My second question, what preparations have been made to accommodate Vincentians who might want to evacuate to Barbados? And where are we going to accommodate them?
So, Gerson, this is an evolving situation. Initially, you realize that cruise liners left the shores of Barbados and went down to St. Vincent. The initial planning was for persons to be evacuated within the territory. So they'd be evacuated to shelters within the territory. They'd be evacuated onto the cruise liners, which were to operate as shelters. But the plan is evolving as the need arises. So there's no formal request for us to house persons in Barbados as yet, but as you can well understand, we can't wait until things happen to then put measures in place. So all of the necessary protocols are being worked on now so that we're not caught by surprise. It is a dynamic situation, but we're there to support our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in any way that we need to as a responsible, caring fellow CARICOM and Caribbean territory.
Good afternoon, Minister Keith Goddard. I would want to follow up on Dr. Trotman's comments and to ask the question based on what he said about the ash and the implications for animals, livestock. What is involved in the cleanup process of the ash? Were we to have a heavy downfall of ash in the country, and how would that process, what would be involved in that process?
I'm not sure I can answer that question as to what the cleanup process. As far as obviously everyone's going to be responsible for their own cleanup if it falls on their property, but as far as affecting the animals, as I indicated earlier, the ash settling on the animals can cause severe irritation. So you would want to make sure you hose off or wash off the faces especially. Then there is obviously the issue with respect to pasture contamination. If there is a heavy fall of ash on pastures, and there's not a lot we can do about that. It does affect not only the grass that's grown, but the soils as well too. And there are going to have to be major issues, cleanup activities, hopefully facilitated by the Ministry of Agriculture to do so. But the main take-home message I would like to give is that we need to make sure farmers, livestock owners, pet owners need to make sure that they have all feed and water supplies in covered containers or out of the way of potentially being contaminated, so that there's at least a few days' supply of feed and water, so the animals can continue to survive during the cleanup period.
Just further to what you asked, Keith, I just want everybody to be aware that, as I said, this is a short, bare bones press conference. We are going to monitor the questions as they come in, and we will have a more fulsome press conference or a series of statements to address the concerns raised. It is difficult to address everything in this because, as I said, this was pulled together very quickly based on a kind of hysteria that was gripping Barbados and a need to assure Barbadians that there are normal channels to get your information from and to give Barbadians a current real-time update as to the situation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and also the situation in Barbados. But we will, for the questions that we can't answer here, you can be assured that we are going to put the information together and disseminate it through the proper channels.
I would just like to say, with regard to my first question about the accommodations to be made for any Vincentians who might seek evacuation here, I noticed this is a question that Barbadians are asking, and that's why I asked you the question. So when you know that, I would appreciate if we could be told.
These things are being worked on all now, right? These things happen from a more official level. There will be a formal request, if necessary, from St. Vincent, and then the appropriate orders will be made from our side, at which point the information will become available to everyone. It's a little bit premature to say what arrangements have been made because we are not yet at that stage. But rest assured that the plans are being put in place to handle any eventuality that may be occur and to be able to offer St. Vincent and its people all the support that we can and all the support that they need.
Are you in a position to tell us yet how many cruise ships that they've already used for evacuation? Do you know?
I don't know how many have already been used for evacuation. One was there early this morning. I think others should be en route. We expect that there'll be about 5 cruise ships off St. Vincent, if not already, but within the next 24 hours. They'll be at the disposal of the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to deploy or to house as the situation warrants. But as that develops, believe me, you are going to be updated on it.
My last question, I'd heard Prime Minister Gonzalez saying to the Vincentians yesterday that they should get vaccinated because some of the countries that they're going to may require that, and the cruise ships were requiring that. Are we making that requirement?
I'm going to turn that one over to Dr. George who is the best person to answer. The answer is not as simple as you would think. So I'm going to let him deal with that.
Plans in order. Just to let you know that a person, if vaccinated today, doesn't start to develop any form of tangible immunity for the first 2 weeks. So therefore, that needs to be taken into consideration. The vaccinated process takes a few weeks to develop antibodies to coronavirus. And therefore, vaccinations are only part of the process. What I will let the public know is that if there's any transfer of persons, the protocols for COVID will be in place and the public will be protected. We will at no time take any shortcuts, and PCR testing, whatever form of testing, will be fully operationalized, and therefore the public of Barbados will be tested. Sorry, the public of Barbados will be informed.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions?
Yes, I have one clarification or just an addition, if you may. We spoke about the livestock. What about produce for consumption? People currently having tomatoes, lettuce, cabbage, that sort of thing. How do they go about ensuring it's not adversely affected by the ash at this time?
Okay, I risk stepping on my crop agricultural colleagues by answering this question inaccurately, but the best thing I can give you on this is that all produce should be properly washed before being consumed or being offered for sale. So I think that the farmers and producers need to pay and do extra attention when they're harvesting crops to make sure that they're properly washed and cleaned before they're offered for sale or consumed. That's about the best advice I can give on this matter. The ash is not going to get into the product itself. It's not going to get through the surface into the thing. It's going to be on the surface of the products.
I believe you were next.
Right. Aliyah Briggs, CBC. So given the presence of the ash in the atmosphere at this present moment, what kind of threat does this pose to our aviation traffic? Are there any plans to stop flights from coming in the near future?
Just wait on Mr. Best to get in position to answer that question, who's the director of the Barbados Met Services.
Thanks for the question. We've been virtually in constant contact with Civil Aviation Authority. The director actually during this meeting just gave me a call, but they couldn't take the call because we were actually in the meeting. So we've been giving them information about the current plume that passed through late this morning or this afternoon, and basically about the fact we have an open window. They're going to take, I can't really speak honestly for the Civil Aviation Authority. Question will probably have to reach directly out to them, but we've been providing enough information for them to make the appropriate decisions about the airspace, which they're in control of, and also they'll be communicating with the Gaia Inc. to ensure that necessary steps and precautions are taken to protect equipment and any aircraft on the ground.
Are there any further questions?
Yeah, hi, Lisa. I just wanted to get, even though the minister said it's early days yet, but I just wondered in terms of us sending a contingent to St. Vincent, is that part of the wider plan, Minister? And can you speak to it?
What do you mean by sending a contingent? As wide as it?
From either from the BDF or as part of the RSS network, is that?
The full support services are going to be deployed. I know that the full support services are going to be deployed as necessary to St. Vincent. The Coast Guard will be heading down to take supplies and to handle transfer of equipment and maybe personnel. I understand there was a request, or some of the security services are on standby just as a precaution, but effectively, St. Vincent is a sovereign territory. If the government of St. Vincent asks for our help in any department and we're able to provide it, then we will do it. What we can't do is pick up and go to someone else's country without being asked or without being invited. So what manpower we send depends on what manpower or what resources are requested. I know that we got a request for certain equipment and supplies, a pretty comprehensive request that's being dealt with through SEDIMA and or DEM here in Barbados. So we're dealing with that, but equally manpower follows the same protocols. What is requested, we will endeavor to supply because we're here to provide support.
Thank you, Minister.
If there are no further questions, I'll ask the Minister to close at this time.
I want to thank the members who came here for this press conference on what was exceedingly short notice. This one was done to address the concerns of Barbadians that were being asked on social media, that were being requested of us through official channels, to put your minds at rest that you will get the information in a timely fashion. As soon as we get information that's relevant to you, we will send that information out in a structured way that you can have confidence in what is being shared with you. Our focus at this point in time is the government and the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I can't imagine what they are possibly going through right now. And the best we can do as a country to our brothers and sisters is to offer them whatever support that they require to help them to get past this life-changing and in many instances life-threatening event. So I want to thank all those who came here at very, very short notice. I want to thank you, the members of the media, for facilitating us with this as well. And the people of Barbados have our undertaking that the information will be supplied. As much as we receive, there are no secrets to be had here. We will pass it on to you, and please rely on the regular and accepted and official communication stations and systems for your information. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. That was Minister of Home Affairs, Information and Public Affairs, the Honorable Wilfred Abrams. We were also addressed by the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Kenneth George, the Director of the Barbados Met Services, Mr. Sabu Best, the Senior Veterinary Officer in the Ministry of Agriculture, Dr. Mark Chotman, and Mr. Anthony Headley, the Director of the Environmental Protection Department. Members of the media, thank you, and thank you for joining us. Good afternoon.